Hi, my name is Brenda Arthur Miller, and I am with you today to talk about the challenges and opportunities of working in a high needs school district. I was asked to speak to you all because I was considered an expert in the field, perhaps, which I'm not sure is true, but I am very excited to share with you about West Liberty Community School District and one of the programs we have that we use to meet the needs of our diverse and very unique community and student population. So I will walk you through it, and you can decide if I'm an expert or not, or reach out and ask me more questions. So, as I said, my name is Brenda Arthur Miller. I'm the high school principal at West Liberty High School, and also the director of English as a Second Language and the director of Dual Language. I've been with West Liberty Community School District for 12 years as an administrator. I started as an assistant principal in the middle school and high school, as well as having the roles of director of ESL, director of Dual Language, and director of Equity. 5 years ago, I switched and filled the role of high school principal, but I still wear the hats of ESL and Dual Language. I myself am bilingual. I speak both English and Spanish. Before getting into administration, I was a high school Spanish teacher for 16 years. This last bullet, I just picked 3 characteristics of me. I am empathetic and direct, which sometimes can be a contradiction. I am also relationship focused, and I think these 3 are definitely leadership characteristics that help me be successful in my current position. So let's talk a little bit about West Liberty and West Liberty Community School District. West Liberty was the first majority minority in the state of Iowa as of the 2020 census, so 22 years ago. Hispanics are our largest ethnic group, making up about 56% of the population, and West Liberty's total population is just under 4,000. We are a very rural community. We are about 15 miles east of Iowa City. Agriculture is one of the largest employers in the community, including West Liberty Foods, which is a turkey processing plant in the city limits of West Liberty. West Liberty Foods processes all of the turkey for Subway restaurants across the United States. So, one of the largest employers. We also have quite a few agriculture production employers, ones that deal in crop management and farm sales and equipment and that sort of thing. So then who are the students that I serve or that we serve in West Liberty? This is according to our beds report run in October. These are the statistics that the state of Iowa, the Department of Ed of the state of Iowa pulls. We are 39% white, 58% Hispanic, 3% other ethnicities and races, including Asian, Black, and multiple races. We have a 9% special ed population and a 26% English language learner population, and last 52% low socioeconomic status. So what does that mean? That means 1 in 4 students speak a language other than English, and 1 in 2 live at a poverty level. So again, we are a minority-majority population. Okay. So my purpose today is to really give you an overview of our current programming, our English as a Second Language program and our Dual Language program, and to talk a little bit about the challenges and opportunities that we have. So why Dual Language for West Liberty? Well, as I said already, we have an English language learner population that sits at 26%, so a little over 1 out of every 4 students speaks a language other than English as their first language, or speaks a language other than English primarily in their home. In West Liberty, that is Spanish, that is primarily spoken at home. In 1998, when we first started our dual language program, we were sitting at 28% population for ELLs, and now we're at 26%. So I'm not seeing a lot of fluctuation. Actually, that's the one constant we have is new families, and a continuation of our English language learners. So just to give a brief overview of West Liberty's dual language program, in 1997, we wrote a grant and received that grant. It was a federal Title VII grant that allowed us money, a little over $1 million, to implement a dual language program for 5 years. It was the first dual language program in Iowa. So the first year was a year of study to visit other programs, obviously not in Iowa, in Utah, in Illinois, some other places across the country. We planned community meetings, family meetings, and recruited students. If you do a little bit of digging, you can see some of the history about the dual language program and getting its start. There were some parent meetings. Community members were concerned that their students were going to be forced to learn Spanish. There was some concern that it was going to be too difficult and it wasn't going, and students weren't going to be successful. So did a lot of parent meetings and a lot of community meetings that first year to just sort of ease people's minds, but also really give them the information they needed to make an informed choice. So then in 1998 was our first year of implementation. The original plan was to have one section of preschool and one section of kindergarten. We had enough enrollment and enough families interested that we started with 2 sections of preschool, 2 sections of kindergarten. We added a new grade each year after that, with our first class graduating in 2011. A little side note, after the 5-year grant expired, we had a group of students that would have been 4th graders at that time. They approached the board and asked and sort of pleaded, but asked for the dual language program to continue, that they thought it was beneficial. And so it was at that point that the district itself decided to take on the task and the budget needed to continue the dual language program. So funded federal grant first 5 years. After that, it's become a general budget expense for West Liberty Community School District. So what is dual language and why dual language for West Liberty? It's a form of bilingual education where content and literacy are taught in both languages, in 2 languages, Spanish and English. It fosters bilingualism, biliteracy, cultural and linguistic diversity awareness, and stresses high levels of academic achievement through instruction in both languages. This video is an additional explanation of why we should be bilingual, what the benefits of the bilingual brain are. So we're going to flip over to that for a moment.
Hablas español? Parlez-vous français? 你会说中文吗? If you answered sí, oui, or 会, and you're watching this in English, chances are you belong to the world's bilingual and multilingual majority. And besides having an easier time traveling or watching movies without subtitles, knowing 2 or more languages means that your brain may actually look and work differently than those of your monolingual friends. So, what does it really mean to know a language? Language ability is typically measured in 2 active parts, speaking and writing, and 2 passive parts, listening and reading. While a balanced bilingual has near equal abilities across the board in 2 languages, most bilinguals around the world know and use their languages in varying proportions. And depending on their situation and how they acquired each language, they can be classified into 3 general types. For example, let's take Gabriella, whose family immigrates to the US from Peru when she's 2 years old. As a compound bilingual, Gabriella develops 2 linguistic codes simultaneously, with a single set of concepts, learning both English and Spanish as she begins to process the world around her. Her teenage brother, on the other hand, might be a coordinate bilingual, working with 2 sets of concepts, learning English in school while continuing to speak Spanish at home and with friends. Finally, Gabriella's parents are likely to be subordinate bilinguals who learn a secondary language by filtering it through their primary language. Because all types of bilingual people can become fully proficient in a language regardless of accent or pronunciation, the difference may not be apparent to a casual observer. But recent advances in brain imaging technology have given neurolinguists a glimpse into how specific aspects of language learning affect the bilingual brain. It's well known that the brain's left hemisphere is more dominant in analytical and logical processes, while the right hemisphere is more active in emotional and social ones, though this is a matter of degree, not an absolute split. The fact that language involves both types of functions, while lateralization develops gradually with age, has led to the critical period hypothesis. According to this theory, children learn languages more easily because the plasticity of their developing brains lets them use both hemispheres in language acquisition, while in most adults, language is lateralized to one hemisphere, usually the left. If this is true, learning a language in childhood may give you a more holistic grasp of its social and emotional contexts. Conversely, recent research showed that people who learned a second language in adulthood exhibit less emotional bias and a more rational approach when confronting problems in the second language than in their native one. But regardless of when you acquire additional languages, being multilingual gives your brain some remarkable advantages. Some of these are even visible, such as higher density of the gray matter that contains most of your brain's neurons and synapses, and more activity in certain regions when engaging a second language. The heightened workout a bilingual brain receives throughout its life can also help delay the onset of diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia by as much as 5 years. The idea of major cognitive benefits to bilingualism may seem intuitive now, but it would have surprised earlier experts. Before the 1960s, bilingualism was considered a handicap that slowed a child's development by forcing them to spend too much energy distinguishing between languages, a view based largely on flawed studies. And while a more recent study did show that reaction times and errors increase for some bilingual students in cross-language tests, it also showed that the effort and attention needed to switch between languages triggered more activity in, and potentially strengthened, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. This is the part of the brain that plays a large role in executive function, problem solving, switching between tasks, and focusing while filtering out irrelevant information. So, while bilingualism may not necessarily make you smarter, it does make your brain more healthy, complex, and actively engaged. And even if you didn't have the good fortune of learning a second language as a child, it's never too late to do yourself a favor and make the linguistic leap from hello to hola, bonjour, or ni haos. Because when it comes to our brains, a little exercise can go a long way. Teacher Toolbox is a great tool.
So, as you saw, there are a lot of benefits to a bilingual brain. This is definitely a video that we use when we are recruiting students for the program or just introducing families to the dual language program. There's a lot of scientific research in there that's beneficial, but also really helps support parents' interest in the program. So, one of the other things that we always want to point out, and is one of the primary reasons that we have our dual language program in West Liberty, is because of the longitudinal research that was done. The research that was done by Thomas and Collier that dates back to 1997, they studied English language learners in various programs to find out which ones had the longest lasting effects for students in acquiring English. And as you can see, dual language is the number one program that helped with that English language development, followed by late exit bilingual and early exit bilingual, which again are versions of a dual language program. But the dual language program, the number one there, is the 50-50 model, where students spend 50% of their instructional time in one language and 50% of their instructional time in English. So again, longitudinal research by Thomas and Collier They created this study first in 1997, but it has been replicated numerous times. So then when we look at West Liberty specifically, we have a district total of 354 English language learner students, which is 28.89%. You can see we have the total number of students per grade, the English language learner total, and then the total of English language learners in dual language. We use dual language as our primary service delivery plan for English language learners. What it does is help students develop their first language and literacy, as well as developing the English language and literacy. And as I showed you, that long-term research shows that this helps students be more successful in English language acquisition, the best. And so one of the current trends that we are seeing, if you look, for example, at grades kindergarten, first and second, we have some significant ELL populations compared to the overall total number of students. For example, in first grade, 41 of the 74 students were classified as English language learners. So we are seeing more students who come to us that end up classified as English language learners because a language other than English is spoken at home, and they are coming to us with less language due to the increase in low socioeconomic status. Also, the pandemic definitely brought students to us that have less exposure to the written word, less exposure to just language in general. And again, with that background of another language spoken in the home or first spoken with them, they are qualifying as English language learners more often, and really are language learners in general, whether that's Spanish or English, right? Then here at the bottom, Spanish is our primary language. We are starting to see a few other languages in West Liberty, Portuguese, Chinese, and Kinyarwanda, to be exact. So when we talk about qualifying for ESL, every family fills out a home language survey when they register, and this is a form that's approved by the state, so it's the same across every district. There are some questions on there that ask what was the first language spoken by the student, also what language is spoken primarily in the home. If either of these are a language other than English, that would trigger a deeper investigation, discussion with family, a cum file review if they've been in school before. If then that's determined, they should be tested. If then they're tested with what's called the ELPA screener. It's a state issued test, a state mandated test. It's computer based. Test the student in reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and then they are placed into some sort of ESL services if they qualify. Those ESL services are called Language Instruction Education Program, or LEAP, as the acronym is. And for West Liberty, the LEAP includes our dual language program. We also have co-teaching in our literacy blocks and literacy classes. We have small group pullout. We have a supplemental program called Imagine Learning. At grades 6 through 12, we have an ESL resource class that is built into students' schedules. So all of these fit under our language instruction education program. When a student qualifies for ESL services, they would fit into one or more than one of these service delivery options. The dual language program is the one that's probably the most popular, and it is a family choice. The other programs, if a family has not chosen dual language, then the student would receive some of these other services depending on their age and their level. So then the service delivery plan is called the Lau plan, which is based on a Supreme Court case of Lau versus Nichols. And the Lau plan includes all of the program necessities, if you will. So how do you test? Who do you test? How do they qualify? What are the services? How do you assess annually? Who reviews the plan? What does professional development look like what does professional development look like for teachers? All of that is included in the LAU plan. The LAU plan is reviewed by ESL teachers and administration, me, annually. Also reviewed with our area education agency annually and posted on our district website. There is a link in here, and I will forward my slides. So if you want to click on that link for some leisurely reading, or you can also go to the West Liberty Community School District website and look at that. As a future teacher, you most likely will have English language learners in your class. So to be familiar with the LAU plan is definitely not a bad thing. So the annual assessment that the students take is the ELPA 21, similar to taking the ISASP every year. ELL students take the ELPA 21 every year. It's, again, computer-based, has 4 components: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Scores are reported to us at the end of the year, typically, and if a student earns 3s or 4s in all 4 components, then they are considered proficient. If they're proficient on ELPA, they are exited from ESL services. For us, that does not mean exited from dual language. Again, that's a family choice, and they are welcome to stay in the dual language program all the way through 12th grade. They are monitored for 2 years, which means we look at academic progress every trimester at the end of every grading period and watch to be sure that students are still maintaining academic progress without those ESL supports. So then again, to get back sort of to our dual language program, but also our ESL programming, we have 3 goals that are set at the district level. The first one being to increase the English proficiency of English language learners. That's the ultimate goal of our dual language program, as well as our ESL programming. Also to increase student achievement, and finally to assist students in becoming bilingual and biliterate. Our dual language enrollment K through 12 looks like this. Again, it has the number of English language learners. We do try to enroll our English language learners in our dual language program as often as possible, with that research showing us that dual language is the quickest way, the best way to help English language learners become proficient in English is by developing their native language and their native literacy. So as you can see, we try to slide in as many English language learners into dual language, but it is still a parent choice program. So overall, as a district, we're at 47% in dual language. It is a program that gets chosen about half the time. So our programming, just kind of walk you through that a little bit. At the ELC, we have what's called a content allocation plan. So when we first started the program, we had mirrored classrooms. So you might be learning math in English one week. The next week you'd be learning math in Spanish. And essentially, if you stopped on page 12, then the next week you started on page 13, same vocabulary, same concepts, just now in a different language. Research shows that students do not develop as strong a vocabulary or as strong of a base with that sort of model. Also, if you have students who are not strong language learners, they sort of wait it out. So if Spanish is my first language, I'm going to sort of wait out the English for that week until I can flip back into Spanish and feel more comfortable, or vice versa. So we moved to a content allocation plan that allows content areas to be taught in one language all year long. So at K2, social studies, math, and literacy are in Spanish all year long, and science and literacy are in English all year long. We do plan for what we call bridging. So after a unit in math in Spanish, we would spend a day where we bridged that vocabulary and bridged some of the standards and the specific content to English, just to make sure we were moving kids along in both languages. We use what is called a 50-50 model, meaning that 50% of our instructional time is in English and 50% of our instructional time is in Spanish. We do also have approximately 50% of our students native language is English, and 50% of our students whose native language is Spanish. So balanced classrooms, balanced instructional time, um, both trying to meet that model. In grades 3 and 4, our content allocation plan is then reversed. Science and literacy are in Spanish, math, social studies, and literacy are in English. So we do have double literacy blocks every day for students, an English one and a Spanish one. Grade 5 moved to, grade 5 moved to the middle school this year, and sticks with the 3-4 content allocation plan. So literacy and science are in Spanish. Grades 6, 7, and 8, literacy and social studies are in Spanish. However, 8th grade this year, literacy is in Spanish and not social studies. That one's in English. When students then come to the high school, they are on an advanced track. So their high school pathway looks like this: dual language, Spanish 3, Spanish 4, Spanish 5, which is a concurrent enrollment class through Muscatine Community College, and then advanced placement Spanish language and culture. The state of Iowa believes in dual language learning and has implemented the seal of biliteracy. It was first started in California and Illinois, and now has moved to several other states. The seal of biliteracy is attached to a student's transcript and indicates that they are proficient in more than one language. They are proficient in English and one other or more than one other language. And so this chart here on the right shows you how students prove proficiency with multiple ways in English. In Spanish, then for us, the 2 ways they could prove proficiency is either on the advanced placement Spanish language and culture test with a score of 3 or better, or on the DALE with a score of B1 or better. And the DALE is a European test that tests reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and gives students a score, A1, A2, B1, B2, and so on. And so a student who scores B1 or better would also earn that seal of biliteracy on their transcript upon graduation. The seal of biliteracy does not dictate that you have to be proficient in both languages at the same time. So, for example, a student might show proficiency on the English language arts part of the ISASP when they were freshmen, and then take the advanced Spanish language AP, advanced placement Spanish language test, when they are junior or senior. So they would still be considered biliterate and earn the seal of biliteracy, even if those happened in different years, different times. So then back to our dual language program in West Liberty. As you saw, we started in 1998 with 2 sections of preschool and 2 sections of kindergarten. Since then, the program has continued to gain popularity to the point where we have waiting lists to get into our program. And so I've had to build some enrollment procedures, if you will, that include some non-negotiables. And the first big non-negotiable there is that the primary purpose of our program is to increase the English language proficiency of our English language learners. So never do we want to see a class that is unbalanced and has, say, 70% native English speaker and only 30% native Spanish speaker. We ultimately want to serve those English language learners, and we want to keep our classes balanced. So it's just some other parameters that our school board has put into place. A few years back, they adopted a policy that requires 2 sections of English only, so not dual language, at each grade level. That's to help balance classes, so we don't have classes that are overly at risk or have a large majority of special ed students or other high needs students that would struggle without some balance. And the last 2 are fiscal responsibility and allocating the resources we have, including staff. So it does cost more to run a dual language program, not a lot more, but some more than an English only program. And finding teachers is definitely a challenge that we have. So just wanting to work within those specific parameters. And so then when we place kids in the program, in particular at kindergarten, this is how we place them. We first place those native Spanish English language learners whose families have chosen dual language for them, because again, it is a choice program. It's not a required program. That's followed by native Spanish siblings, and we will go up to as far as 66% Spanish speakers in a classroom if the need dictates that, if the desire dictates that, followed by native English siblings, and finally a lottery for the remaining slots. And then if all of the slots are filled, we will build 2 waiting lists, one of native English speakers and one of native Spanish speakers. We place those students through first grade. The other thing we do is we really leave some spots, if we can, 1 or 2 spots for newcomer ELLs. In West Liberty, it's not uncommon for us to have new families move in October or November or February or March. And so when newcomer families arrive and those students really have no English and speak Spanish as their first language, we want to make sure we can slide them into that dual language program if that's what the family wants. Research shows that helps students acclimate to school and acclimate to the community and the culture that they're moving into if they have that sort of solid ground where they know they will be able to understand and comprehend and speak in their first language. So I want to show you just a little bit about dual language and why it's working maybe better, actually definitely better than our English only program. I think both programs are phenomenal and we have fabulous teachers, but we have we have data that shows us that this exited ESL students, so students who have scored proficient on the ELPA assessment in the spring, in grades 1 through 4, these are current students we have 27 students in grades 1 through 4 who have exited ESL, who have scored proficient on the ELPA. Of those 27, 21 were and still are in dual language. So we see that 21 exited from ESL by being in dual language, where students who are in English only, we only had 6 exit. So, and then you can see both grades 5 through 8 and 9 through 12 similar data. So we know the research says that dual language works, but we also can see that it is definitely working for us in West Liberty. And then on the other side of that, kind of the flip side of that, we know that our dual language program really prepares students for a future in Spanish, or if they're looking to not take it in college, or looking to test out of it in college or get college credit before they get there, sort of thing. So as I said, in 2011, we had our first high school graduating class. We now average 15 to 25 graduates each year. And that 15 to 25 graduates each year, we are continually seeing that go up and on the increase. More and more students are graduating and finishing the program. In 2021, I pulled our advanced placement Spanish language and culture scores. We had 15 students that took the AP Spanish language and culture test, and all 15 earned a 3 or better. You can see 12 of the 15 earned a 4 or a 5. And depending on the college of their choice, that gets them anywhere from 3 to sometimes as many as 15 credits, college credits, for their future. One of the big partnerships we have in West Liberty is with the International Spanish Academy. It's an agreement we have with the Ministry of Education of Spain, and it's organized by the Office of Education of Spain here in the US and in Canada. What that gets us is a consultant from Spain who's based in Lincoln, Nebraska, who comes and visits our program a couple times a year. It also gives us access to the Visiting Teachers from Spain program, which allows us to hire teachers from Spain to teach in our dual language program, which is a phenomenal asset for us to have a native Spanish speaker teaching our students. They're seeing people who look like them and speak like them in professions that they perhaps want to pursue. We also have culture and language assistants from Spain. We typically have one a year that works as a teaching assistant in one of our buildings and supports students' Spanish language development. Our teachers have access to professional development in Spain, as well as our advanced placement students have access to study abroad trips to Spain, and we have been a member since 2007. So then, speaking about our teachers, in West Liberty, we try to hire bilingual teachers as often as possible. Um, Our biggest need for bilingual teachers is definitely at our K-6 level. In Iowa, there is no endorsement for bilingual education. So we screen our teaching candidates to determine if they're bilingual ourselves. We do that through an oral proficiency interview and also a writing proficiency assessment. Uh, and because if they're teaching, especially at the elementary level, they're teaching that content in Spanish, we need to know that they are fully bilingual. We also are always looking for ESL endorsed teachers. So if you are someone who's still in college and thinking about adding an endorsement, I suggest you earn your ESL endorsement if at all possible. It's going to help you just be a better, well-rounded teacher, but it's also an extremely shortage area, and there are lots of ESL jobs out there. So again, because our dual language program is one of our primary delivery options for English language learners, we are always looking for ESL endorsed teachers. Finally, our teachers are trained on Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol, or SIOP. SIOP is a framework for teaching that is built specifically to help English language learners. So spends a lot of time on scaffolding and strategies and building background and key vocabulary, and is in general very good teaching that helps all students, but geared specifically for English language learners. We have monthly professional development on SIOP to make sure our teachers, all of our teachers, whether they teach in the dual language program or not, can help English language learners. And then I just threw up a quote from one of our teachers. It was sort of an aha moment for them. Students can learn any content as long as we can scaffold it to be accessible. Being bilingual is an asset. They are smart in two languages. We need to help them show it. And that's one of the biggest takeaways, I think, from the West Liberty Community School District. We have students that are definitely high need. 1 in 4 speak a language other than English. 1 in 2 live at the poverty level. The students come to us with high needs and maybe what others might consider disadvantages, where we see them as assets. Being bilingual is an asset. And how do we help these students show that they are smart and show they understand content, with language being a barrier or not an obstacle, but one that we can build a ladder around or figure out a way around. So one thing we do every 2 to 3 years is what's called a SWOT analysis. It stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so we really look at our program from all of the angles. So what do we see as strengths? What do we see as opportunities for West Liberty Community School District, our dual language program, and our ESL programming for kids? And one, it's the oldest dual language program in the state of Iowa. But two, it is invaluable for our community. With a community that is a majority Hispanic, to be able to offer families and students the option to learn content, literacy, and language in their native language is unbelievably important and unbelievably valuable. Just families are able to preserve their culture and preserve their language. Younger generations are able to communicate with their grandparents, and in their native language. It makes West Liberty a very diverse place, but a very welcoming place. This last November in 2021, we had mostly Hispanic city council and mayor, which is just outstanding and represents the community that we have. So that's the way it should be, in my opinion. By having this dual language program, we're fostering biliterate, bilingual, and multicultural students. And that's not just native Spanish speakers, that's all of our students. When you think about a first grade classroom that's following a 50-50 model, 50% of your students are learning Spanish, 50% of your students are learning English, 100% of your students are language learners. And how do we meet the needs and how do we scaffold? So, going back to that idea of SIOP, it's beneficial for everybody. It's beneficial for all of our students because if they're in our dual language program, they are language learners, right? And then again, just that idea that we have teachers from Colombia and Mexico and Puerto Rico and Spain and students from all of those countries, plus Ecuador, or El Salvador, and Guatemala, and Honduras, and Bolivia, that students are seeing teachers who look like them and are seeing the potential for themselves to take on a role, to become a teacher, to fit into a community that is welcoming and that looks like them. And there's just no better value, I think, than that. And finally, our dual language program meets the needs of our minority students, which in West Liberty is our majority. And again, just that idea that it offers a focus on language and literacy in both Spanish and English. It offers um, a chance for students to develop both languages. And then in thinking about our native English speakers and native Spanish speakers, but to follow the program all the way through to 12th grade gives them a leg up, if you will, in college. It gives them a leg up in perhaps pursuing careers where being bilingual is an important asset. They have studied it for 13 years now, both English and Spanish. And so definitely makes them more marketable, makes them more valuable in a workplace and at college. And so then the opposite in thinking about our weaknesses and our threats, the biggest one I wanted to focus on is just the shortage of teachers we have in general in West Liberty, in Iowa, in the United States. It's a dire time for education right now. It's very difficult to find teachers to fill all the positions that we have open. Here in West Liberty, we currently have 2 openings for ESL teachers. We also have 2 openings for bilingual elementary. We've had to adjust some of our approaches and how we teach our curriculum and to try and stay as close to our 50-50 model as we can, because there just are not a lot of teachers out there. So it's definitely a challenge for us. And then in thinking about some of the other weaknesses or threats that we have, the Visiting Teachers from Spain program is a fabulous program, and we are very, very appreciative of being involved in it. It does only allow teachers from Spain to be here for 3 years, so there are some limitations to it. And again, just challenges and threats, I guess, if you would, that we're facing as a school district. But also, when we think about the teacher shortage, it's not just West Liberty and it's not just Iowa, right? So that is my presentation. I hope I didn't leave you with more questions and that you have, but I do hope you have some questions and will reach out to me. This is my email, which is probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. Again, I would like to say I'm very honored to have been asked to present today, and I hope that this gives you some insight into, in particular, West Liberty Community School District, but also some of the needs that are challenging all schools and many districts in Iowa. Finally, just one more plug for our dual language program, or just West Liberty in general. We are very welcoming and open to visitors. So if you would like to observe or tour or see the dual language program or any of our programs in action, also please feel free to email me or call me. Thank you so much for your time today, and best of luck. Thank you.